Hi, this is Dr. Ray Nannis with Optimum Wellness Solutions, and today we're going to be continuing our discussion of the Owner's Manual for the Human Body. Remember, it's OWNNERS. Today we're going to be discussing the W. The W is water. Every single cell in our body is water. In fact, about 70 to 90% of our body is made out of water, so we need clean, fresh water on a daily basis. I look at the body many times as a fishbowl. What would happen if you had a fishbowl that you'd not changed the water in? Of course, the fish aren't going to make it. It's going to get yucky and nasty and mucky and green and gross and all of those type of things, and we're going to have a funeral for our fish because it's just not going to, they're not going to last. Our body works exactly the same way. Every single cell in our body requires water. When I was in chiropractic college, one of the things that I recognized was we were taking biochemistry class. At the time, I was drinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 Diet Cokes every single day. About halfway through biochemistry class, I had an epiphany. I haven't had many in my life, but that was one of them. It was that every cell in our body requires water, not Coca-Cola. What would happen if I took that Diet Coke and dumped it in my fishbowl? Again, the fish aren't going to make it. We have the same thing. I stopped cold turkey, went through all of the detoxification stuff, and started drinking water as my primary thing that I drink. I'm not going to say that I'm perfect, but most of what I drink is water because every cell in our body requires water. In fact, in biochemistry, the thousands of chemical reactions that go on in our body, water is a part of every single one of them. There's not a single chemical reaction that's not happening inside the fluid concentration of water that our body is predominantly made out of. Interestingly, the surface of our planet is about 70% water, just like the makeup of our body, about 70% water. I've always thought that was a unique coincidence. Now, what we want to talk about today is we want to talk about not only the importance of water, we want to talk about how do you decide what type of water you need, what are you going to do with the water, and how do we deal with that. The first component and probably the most important part of the water is how much water do you need? The simple answer is take your body weight in pounds, whatever that number is. So I weigh about 190. Take that number and divide it in half. Now I've always say this, I'm a chiropractor, not a mathematician, so I'm just going to round up and call it 200 for simple numbers. So I need about 100 ounces of water per day. That's going to continue to flush my system, to hydrate my body, and give the chemistry of my body what it needs to be able to function the way that it's designed. It's that continual flow. Now we are going to get some water from the foods that we eat, especially if we're eating a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, and even some meat products. We get very little or no water if we're eating a lot of breads and pastas and things like that. So the quantity of water is the first and probably one of the most important components of water. The next thing we want to talk about with water is the quality of water. And I've done a ton of research. I had no idea how detailed this subject was. In fact, we have almost a 1-hour workshop, and we will be adding that information in as we get into this in greater detail in future videos. But today's our overview of how much information there's available on the subject of water. There are all sorts of filters out there. There are carbon filters. Those are the most common things. Those are the ones you can buy in most of the local stores around here. They have names like Brita and things along that lines. The challenge is, although they are better than doing nothing, they don't take care of much of the problems that come in the water. Here's what goes on. Our cities are designed, and they do a spectacular job to filter the water. That's what they've designed the city water systems for. They're going to take the water and deliver it to our homes, into our faucets, so that we don't get things like dysentery. And most of the cities, at least in the United States, do a great job at that. The challenge is, that's about where they stop, and they add so many chemicals into the water system to keep things like dysentery and other amoebic and bacteria infections from spreading. The challenge is, the stuff that they're adding into the water many times are toxins. In fact, there are over 2,000 chemicals in the Dallas tap water alone. Up to 92 of them, at least, are known carcinogens. Now, the ones that we take out with things like Brita filters, at least a little bit, is predominantly only the chlorine. It's really not going to take care of much of anything else. Now, getting rid of the chlorine is an important thing because the chlorine is one of the major problems, but chlorine, fluoride, those type of things are on the halide group. Those are that seventh thing, if you remember from chemistry class, that seventh column. Those halides, they're neurotoxins. There's an interesting story of the first person that started adding fluoride into our water. He was a little short guy, probably about my height. He had a little mustache about this big, was hanging out in the world around the 30s and 40s. He was basically the reason for World War II. We called him Hitler. What he did is he added fluoride into the water because what it did is it sedated the population. It made us think slower because it's a neurotoxin. Now, I do know that there's some conflicting information whether it's okay to have fluoride in the water because it helps our teeth. The challenge with this one is that in order for fluoride to actually have any benefit for our teeth, it has to be in direct contact with our teeth for at least a few moments. I don't know about you, but I don't hold most of the water in my mouth as I'm drinking. I just drink it. So it's not touching my teeth very much, so I think that point's kind of mute. My idea is this. Our body was designed to handle clean, fresh water, and we want to be able to put that into our body, if at all possible, and we want to do things to take out as much toxin as possible. Ideally, we want to leave as many good things that come in water as well, but we have to have some kind of a compromise. The biggest compromise for me is I want the cleanest water coming into the body.
Oh, you're almost ready for that. Wow.
Hi, artists. It's me, Artie. And me, Epiphany.
About halfway through biochemistry class, I had an epiphany. I haven't had many in my life, but that was one of them. That's going to continue to...
What are we watching?
Guys.
Are you excited?